Hello, BookTube. It's Wednesday, and that's New Comic Book Day here in the United States. A day when uh, mouth-breathing virgins heave themselves up from their gaming consoles in their mother's basement and go to their LCS, their local comic shop, where they stare at the comics and flip through them and read everything they want and then leave without paying for anything. uh, and I partake of New Comics Wednesday when I can. I love it. I remember it fondly. Uh, but I don't do it in the way that most comics fans do, uh, where they're waiting for the latest installment of whatever monthly series they're following. Because I don't really follow any monthly series anymore. I don't read individual comic books anymore. Um, Instead, I take advantage of the booming comic book reprint trade, and usually once a week there's something coming out that I will want, some reprint volume that I will want, so that I get to go to my local comic shop, which is not very local. I actually have a comic shop right up the street from where I live, but the one I go to is Comicopia here in Boston. I know I go way back with its owner, and I love the staff. They're fantastic, and of course the customers aren't the cartoon stereotype that I evoke in these episodes. A lot of the customers are wonderful too. And there was a reprint volume this week, and I grabbed it. It's something that's going to be familiar if you've been watching this channel. It's the Legion of Superheroes. In this case, Legionnaires, the second volume of the 1990s run that was done by Tom McGraw and Tom Pear and Mark Waid, starring the young Legion of Superheroes. That right there on the cover are the founding members of the Legion of Superheroes: Lightning Lad, Cosmic Boy, and Saturn Girl. But this has a cast of thousands, and the stories range all over the place. It's kind of in midstream, and it's very hectic. The Toms, McCraw, and Pear really valued hectic storytelling. They have almost no quiet moments. And that makes them fun to reread. I haven't read these since I read them as individual issues in the 90s. And the artwork is hit or miss for me. It's Lee Moder is a hit. Lee Moder is a fantastic comic book artist. I absolutely love him. The other artist here is Jeffrey Moy. He's the one who did this front cover, and him I can take or leave. He has no real skill with facial expressions, no real skill with anatomy, no real skill with conveying action in a panel other than just with action motion lines. And to me, that seems primitive compared to a lot of artists who have worked on the Legion, and that means his issues, it's a little harder for me. I have to sort of ignore the artwork in his issues. But these issues are great. The Mark Waid influence that I don't particularly care for crops up once in a while in his fondness for killing characters, for maiming characters. I'm the old school of DC Comics, where the thing I like is when the story is interesting and the emotional developments are interesting, but that nothing basic ever changes. Characters don't die unless it's a huge heralded event and rare, and they don't get maimed ever, and they don't get mentally traumatized ever. I have that all around me in the real world. I don't go to comic books for that. Unfortunately, that's not the way comic books are anymore. So I've sort of had to make my peace with that. But the Tom Craw and Tom Pear are fairly good at it. They're a lighter touch than Mark Waid. A character does die in this volume, for instance, a major iconic Legionnaire who simply cannot die, period, plain, full stop. And a character is maimed, and that's also iconic in its own way. It's an echo of famous in a long time ago when the Legion first started out and first started to become popular. Lightning Lad was maimed in an issue. He lost an arm to the Moby Dick of space. That's a long story. He got a mechanical arm instead, although by the 30th century you'd think they could simply vat grow any missing limb. Back then, those issues were being written in the early 60s, so the writing, the technology in the Legion was about as much as the people then could imagine. So the Legionnaires, the Legion of Superheroes in the early 1960s, there was no internet. There was no anything like that. No one had thought of it yet, or they wouldn't have been in comics. They'd be multi-billionaires today. But these, I'm sure, will be a lot of fun. I remember these issues, and this is the first volume of 3 great Legion reprints from 3 different eras that are coming out this summer. A little later on, there's a massive hardcover omnibus of the exact time period I was just talking about, the late 50s and early 60s, the Silver Age Legion of Superheroes, an omnibus, the second volume, that I can't wait. That is my Legion. I can't wait to see it. And there's also a second volume hardcover reprint called Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes, which deals with a different time period. So these are many eras of the Legion. And I kind of like that. It's only once in a while that a writer, perhaps one we've already mentioned, will be given the reins, just free rein for a Legion reboot and do it poorly. Like, for instance, making Legion into a galaxy-wide protest movement of teenagers who hate, like, gross adults and, like, whatever. Where you're waiting and waiting and waiting for a big profile, high profile Legion relaunch, and you get that, and it's like a punch in the stomach. But usually not. Usually the reboots, the Legion is now famous for endless reboots. Usually they're good. I myself have a taste. I like no dystopia. I like no adult Legion. I like no grim or mercenary Legion. I like no maimings, no killings. But I have a golden period of my own where the Legion was just fun to read. And also, when you're looking at those older issues, I'm sure I'll talk about this later when I get the Silver Age omnibus, but you can see it even here. It's just in the 20th century, in the late 20th century, in the 21st century, people who don't know the history of the Legion might lose track of how revolutionary it was when it first started. And you had members, one of the founding members of the Legion of Superheroes, Cosmic Boy, joins the team because he's looking for a job. It's absolutely unheard of in comic books at the time. Absolutely unheard of for there to be, for anybody, for economics to come up at all. Think about how many 1940s masked vigilante characters are playboys, are rich millionaires who are just fighting crime as a sort of a way to get through a dull evening. And there's family drama, and once the Legion started taking off with fans, the writers always made sure to tell the readers who was dating who on the team. Which also had been completely unheard of, just completely unheard of that any member of the Justice Society or the Justice League. But anyway, these issues just are frantically bursting with activity. And one of the things, if I remember correctly, one of the plots in here is a quintessential barometer of any Legion team. And that is, how would the team fare if it had to fight a handful, let's say 4 or 5, Kryptonians? Evil alien individuals who have power levels on par with Superman. How would the Legion fare? Really, how would any super team fare? But let's say the Legion. In my view of the Legion, it should be easy. It should be a cakewalk. They should have at least 10 or 11 characters who can easily go toe-to-toe with a Kryptonian and win. And in this particular iteration of the Legion, that's not true. You have only a couple of characters who can do that. And as far as I'm concerned, I prefer it when the Legion is much more powerful and just challenge the writers to come up with interesting stories, even so. But I'll take any. As far as I'm concerned, the ideal situation would be if I have a shelf that is all Legion reprints of everything, of every era of the Legion. I might even want a big omnibus volume of that stupid era where the team is all, anti-adult. I might even want that. But I certainly want all the other eras, all of them, even the really low points that I followed the Legion through loyally. So that is my comic for today. It's my beloved Legion of Superheroes. It's not the last time you'll hear about them this summer, because it's a summer of the Legion that's DC is I'm sure just by random chance producing this summer, and I'm going to be all over it like white on rice. I don't know that there are that many volumes coming out this summer of anything else that I'm particularly interested in. We shall see. There's I think this week a Superman reprint volume came out from the Silver Age or earlier, that I don't think I saw it at the comic shop. They probably never ordered a copy. I'd probably have to go to a big chain music and vinyl and comic shop thing where they order everything. The local comic shop that I use isn't like that. They're very careful with their ordering because they don't want to order stuff and have it just sit on the shelf. Like, for instance, the 2 Legion collections that are coming out later this summer, they will order a copy from me. They won't have one for the store. And the Superman thing, they just might not have got. So later on in the week, I will probably stop by Newbury Comics, which is a big multi-store chain here in Boston that usually gets a copy of everything. And I'll see if they have that Superman volume. But otherwise, this was it for the week. I don't even really know what the current issues were of Marvel or DC superhero titles. Isn't that terrible? The me from 20 years ago wouldn't have recognized that state of affairs. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now. I just wanted for you comic book fans to let you know what I got today. and if I do have comic book fans watching these comic book videos, feel free to let me know what you got on New Comic Books Day. It's just because I don't buy them doesn't mean I'm not interested. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, and I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.